Are we recording?
We are recording.
All right, thank you. Uh, Good morning, everyone. I'm calling the Policy Committee meeting to order, and I will now call the roll. Avery Gaddis, present, not present. Michael Jefferson.
Present.
Ojala Naheem won't be in attendance. Shirley Skyers Thomas.
Present, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And myself, Ed Shirley, as chair. I understand we now have a quorum. So the first item will be the approval of minutes. So let's take a moment to review the minutes, and then I'll ask for a motion to approve. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Ayes have it. Just like to compliment the staff on the detail and accuracy of the minutes. Appreciate that. The next item is discussion of the social equity plan implementation report. Director Clay.
Sure. Good morning, everyone, through you, Mr. Chair. So the item on the agenda today has to do with the implementation of social equity plans and workforce development plans. So I sent an email about a week ago to the members of this committee indicating that at this time, the legislation is silent on the implementation of workforce development plans and social equity plans. In addition, the legislation is silent on if a company fails to implement their social equity plan or follow their workforce development plan. The council currently does not have authority to enforce the implementation of either of those plans, and that is concerning to us. So we have been discussing some recommendations on how we might want to have some sort of authority and have some sort of responsibility to make sure that the companies are investing in the communities as the legislation requires. So for social equity plans, it requires all cannabis establishments to write a social equity plan geared to a DIA that has social impact in those communities. So we have been reviewing those plans, and those plans are impactful. But at the end of the year, they're required to provide us with a 6-month report of their plan and then an annual report of their plan. So a 6-month progress report and then the annual report on their plan. Once that is submitted to us, we kind of stop there. The same thing with the workforce development plan. After the plan has been approved, we stop there. So wanted to get your thoughts and ideas on next steps if we want to have these plans one and done, and then there is no follow-up with them. If we wanted to ask for an amendment to ensure that we have the authority to enforce the implementation of the plans, and what does that look like? So that's kind of where we are, and I just wanted to start that conversation and get your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Director Clay. And just to rehash for a second. So it's clear, well, let me ask, is it clear that there is an intention that these plans, once developed, are implemented? It would appear the legislation there is that intention. And
Yes.
In fact, in practice, there has been a significant amount of dialogue between the staff and the prospective licensee who is in terms of the development of these social equity plans. So it's clear that they understand implementation is a requirement.
Correct.
Which, So then I think I say that just to say what follows then is I would think that some sense that there would be consequences if the plans are not implemented. But right now, what's been brought out is the Social Equity Council does not have that authority to impose any consequence. And I guess my question then is any other agency or do they have the authority to impose some consequence given once a plan is put forward and accepted?
Not according to the legislation.
Okay, so then it would have so then one option would be to amend the legislation, I take it, right?
Yeah, yes.
And are there any other, short of that, are there any other effective means of making sure that social equity, that these licensees follow through with their plan? Do we have is some other way we can do that?
There isn't at this point. We have no authority. I don't, the one thing that we are researching, and it may not be available just yet, we did start to research this, was the renewal process for adult use cannabis licenses. And that is through the DCP. So we only searched on the website, I believe, to see if there was a checklist for renewing a license, Member Skyers Thomas, and we did not see anything. And I don't know if, and maybe you know, in the renewal of a cannabis license, is there any requirement related to social equity plan or mention of social equity plan or workforce development plans?
So in the renewal, I know that we have no opportunity and we have no recourse to anything with regard to plans. So it's not even contemplated. It's not a part of the legislature as, I don't know if it was contemplated in the legislature, but it's not written as such. So we don't have that authority to do anything with social equity plans. I know, if you don't mind me kind of switching gears for 2 seconds, and Councilman
Sure.
Jeffrey, I apologize for jumping in front, but what about the option of kind of divorcing the process from the licensing piece and allowing what's fully within the realm of the Social Equity Council to move forward, such as things like fines, such as things like a separate review process, and kind of
Yeah.
dividing the reliance on the on DCP and the licensing piece. That's my
Correct. Yeah, so that is, and that's what we are, that's what our recommendations are developing into. But the question is, in the renewal process for cannabis licenses, is there anything in your renewal that says an approved plan by the Social Equity Council for workforce or social? I know it is in the initial license, but there's nothing related to that in the renewal. Okay, that's what we needed to know. We didn't, and so knowing that, we have some other ideas and recommendations for discussion. And unfortunately, we just had this discussion yesterday, and so I didn't have an opportunity to write those recommendations up or options. So I will get those to you, but I kind of wanted to see what your thoughts are around if we want to ensure that social equity plans are continued on with these companies. And I will say that the report's impact in communities is significant. And I will also say that we don't have a company that is resisting doing a social equity plan and having social impact in the community. So I would recommend that we come up with a method that will allow these companies to continue to move on, but it gives us some authority to ensure that they are implementing the plan as we have approved them.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jefferson, you had your hand up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, this is such a crucial aspect of our mission. We just, cannot sacrifice it. It has to be corrected. I think it's a glitch,
It is.
honestly, in the legislation. That's all it is. I think the intent is very clear. We're the Social Equity Council, and a social equity plan is mandated from the start. And so it's just a quick fix, because right now everything is based on an honor system. Once, of course, they have the plan, because they can't get the license without the plan. So they're going to have a plan. And I would imagine that most folks are going to try to do right by us. But the problem is, if that doesn't happen and we have no recourse, then we're failing in our mission. So we have to do that. I am very interested to hear in the interim what the executive director and her staff has come up with in terms of, offsetting, just in case on a renewal, what ideas and recommendations you have.
So and I'm trying to find my notes. Like I said, I was, Chairman Shirley and I had an extensive conversation yesterday with staff regarding some options. So what I remember off the top of my head would be that there would be, so 3 options. A, and this is probably the least, I think, our least favorite, but that the DCP renewal process includes that the social equity plan has been implemented at the satisfaction of the council prior to the renewal. The second option is that the Social Equity Council take this kind of out of the equation of the renewal process. And if the plan is not implemented, that we have the authority to issue fines to the company for not implementing their plans. And then the third option was we allow companies to voluntarily submit annual social equity plans and voluntarily have impact in the community.
Well, so these are plans. These ideas and recommendations are in lieu of a change in the legislation.
No, it would require legislation.
Right. So right, and the fines, I would imagine, would go into the reinvestment fund, right?
Yes. Yeah.
That's where we would probably offset it. Well, then if it requires a legislation, then we should. I think we should be a little. I don't know.
Draconian.
Yeah. If folks don't have, I think it's beyond a fine. I mean, I'm trying to think in terms, because I want to avoid litigation, because you can't shut someone down. So once they got the license and so maybe the fine is all we can do. Have we given any thought to anything else, any other penalties? And I'll be curious to hear what Councilwoman Skyes Thomas has to say about that.
Sure. Councilwoman?
So thank you, sir. If I could really quickly, the first option, I'm not fully aware of how that would play out, but the first option, allowing an acknowledgement in the licensing piece, I feel like the acknowledgement is fine, but there's no teeth under that. So outside of an acknowledgement, if they don't do it, then what? We're not going to hold back their license. We're not going to stop them from operating because we're not given that authority. So I'm not certain what that aspect would do. That's just a question on the side. But outside of a fine, I was kind of wrestling with this myself. I was thinking about it the other day and talking with Director Clay. I don't know what else we have the opportunity, what else we're given the authority to do. So outside of a change in legislation, fines are what are built in right now. Fines are what's currently available, but the extent to which I'm not aware of. I don't know how deeply we can take advantage of that. So I feel like a fine of the right amount would send the right message. But outside of that, I like a change of legislation is what's necessary. So I'm not certain if I'm properly answering your question, Councilman Jefferson, but that's my opinion on how to move forward with that. The voluntary piece, I don't know what what the teeth are for that either. So
There's none.
there's no
There's
teeth.
no
None.
teeth.
Right,
Right.
there's no teeth. It's an honor system.
Okay.
Through you, Mr.
A little bit more more binding than that. Something that holds people accountable for what they said they were going to do and kind of puts feet to fire. And I agree with Councilman Jefferson that I believe that most companies are interested in moving forward, but direction is necessary and some consultation will be necessary. So if it's not on course, how do we right that ship?
Right.
So
I might
and
just,
through you, Mr. Chair, I have a follow-up for Councilwoman Scott Thomas. So Cheryl, we can impose fines without a change in the legislation?
Not the
there's
council. The council
Not the
can't.
council?
The council has no ability or authority to issue any fine.
I
Okay.
believe there's opportunity. Look a little better because I did see something very recently that gave us authority to levy fines, but I would have to look a little bit more deeply. I was reading it in passing with our director of drug control just the other day, so I would have to circle back. But I thought there was ability.
okay.
Just
I
wanted
think I
to-
see Councilman Gaddis has joined us and has his hand up. Councilman?
Good morning, everyone. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just want to be very candid. I have no interest in having a council issue fines. I think you go to the legislature with that sort of language, you're asking for a whole bunch of issues from a whole bunch of personalities that are looking for reasons to give us all the smoke. Trust me. We have an issue right now with quasi-public agencies bringing forth legislation that allows them to fine in the marketplace. And that's always a debate. And so I really think that's going to be a rough situation in this building. That's just my opinion. I don't want nothing to do with fines. I'm not trying to fine people. We got enough on our plates. Let's just be careful here.
And so, Councilman Gaddis, I think what do you have? The issue is, of course, if we don't have, there's a social equity plan requirement. Plan is submitted. If they're not adopted, then I guess the question is, what do we do? What can we do?
I got to be
So-
honest with you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not looking to solve the world's problems. I'm not trying to boil an ocean. I'm trying to make sure that the work before me, is very manageable. I don't know how to regulate that, but what I do know is I'm not interested in fines. That's what I know. I will vote no for any fines. Any recommendation for fines, I'm an absolute no vote, period.
Understood. I get there are precedents though, right? I mean, if we look at other businesses where licenses are required from the state or from municipalities, and they have requirements, community action requirements, let's call them. I know the cable industry generally has, in order to get a cable license, you need to have, there are those kinds of requirements. I guess my question is, how do they behave? What's the, if they are not, if these actions are not taken, what's the consequence in those other industries? Yeah,
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Jefferson, yes.
Yeah, here's the thing. In light of Councilman Gaddis's position, I because I hear him, and what we have to consider is the renewal itself. So, if Madam Executive Director, when we say renewal, are we talking about the renewal of the license?
Of the yes, the
Right.
cannabis license.
Right, and so from initially, they can't have a license unless they have a social equity plan, right? I mean,
Correct.
right. So shouldn't renewal, the legislation simply mirror the initial criteria upon renewal? You have to have a social equity plan, or demonstrate that the plan you have is acceptable and has been implemented correctly, right? Or you just don't have your license renewed.
That is an option.
I think in light of what Councilman Gaddis is saying, I think that's it's a limited option. We have limited options moving forward if we're not going to go in the direction of a fine.
Right. Well, I think that,
You understand what I'm saying? So because that's really what we want, right? We really want to. We have to pursue that because we're the Social Equity Council. We have to pursue equity in the adult cannabis industry, and to ensure that we need a social equity plan and a workforce development plan. And if those things are not, if these companies don't implement those things and don't have those things, they shouldn't have a license. It's just that simple. And I don't think that takes much. I think I'm basically saying that renewal should mirror the initial criteria for licensing.
Thank you for that. Councilman Gaddis, you had your hand up again. No. Is there a way then can we go back to the legislators to ascertain what their intention was in terms of having a social equity plan requirement in order to get a license? I'm leaning toward what Councilman Jefferson said, which to me makes eminent sense, that we, in order to renew, there should be some evidence that the social equity plan has been implemented or is in the process of implementation. I mean, that seems to me to be, kind of a logical follow-up to the requirement for the plan itself.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
So
Mr.
it
Chairman,
becomes-
I just want to be clear. What I'm saying is I'm all for enforcement mechanisms, but what I'm not for is continually running back to the legislators and having them take a peek under our hood. Every time you do that, you're inviting potential chaos. Trust me. And we really don't want to do that. We need to be smart, move off the radar. I don't understand why every time we want to do something, we got to go run and tell and ask people. Just do it and flex. If people got a problem with it, they could come back and tell us. That's what I'm about.
Well,
Let's
then,
help us.
following that, then, Councilman Gaddis, what we're talking about is having the renewal being contingent on implementation of the existing social equity plan.
I like
And
that makes sense. And I don't think we need anyone's permission to do that. I think the permission is inherent in the statutes already.
that's an
Just like
that-
folks stretch the Constitution.
I don't know
Let's
that that is,
stretch language.
as Councilwoman, go ahead.
I'm so sorry for speaking out of turn. Please forgive me,
No,
everyone.
not at all. Go ahead.
But to Councilman Gaddis's point or contention, I would prefer if we had an attorney to review that to really assess whether or not we have that authority in statute. My assessment said we did not, but again, please do not allow me to be the final authority on this. If we were able to move forward and add renewals to the process, then my understanding is that it would just be a part of the regular process as we would for anyone else holding a license. So if they failed to do an aspect of it, then we have a process that says they'd have a hearing or whatever, and they can cure during the hearing, or perhaps make amends during the hearing or something like that. But outside of us, the council members, making that decision, I would prefer if there was a legal authority really looking at that with that eye in mind and moving forward to that end. So I guess my thought right now is I'm not certain what to do in this moment, because I believe it requires a little bit more than we need to determine in our meeting right now.
Thank you, Councilman Jefferson.
Yeah, this question through you, Mr. Chair, is for the executive director. Madam Executive Director, so, because I want to be clear about this renewal process. Is the renewal process automatic?
That is through the DCP. I don't have the details on what the renewal process is. We just started looking,
Well, then I
researching it.
pose the question to DCP through you, Mr. Chair, to Cheryl Thomas Scott.
Yes. So, I know it's not automatic, meaning, wait, sorry. What are we asking? Are we asking?
I'm asking, there is a renewal process at some point, right? Somebody has to, because they only have a license for a limited period of time, right? So there is a renewal process. How does that renewal process look? Because if they don't have a social equity plan, can the renewal be held up? If they haven't implemented a plan or, have not submitted a plan, can that renewal be held up? That's my question.
So thank you for clarifying, Councilman Jefferson. So right now, there's nothing contemplated about SEC. So it can just be renewed based on the process of renewing, the process that we have in our system for someone to come in, put in their information and just renew their license. And renewals are some.
So is it automatic? I'm just trying to get a sense. So that does it. So they can violate any aspect of the license and have it renewed. I mean, there's nothing that stops them from renewing the license. Nothing.
Yeah, there's no ties to any SEC criteria right now, and it's not contemplated in statute to do so. So there is no connection right now between the licensing process and anything that SEC is requiring. So let me see. Yeah, so if there's anything that's being violated, they go to hearing.
Right, Director Clay, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think, and I just want to make sure I understand Councilman Jefferson's question. I think he's asking what, besides the social equity plan or the workforce development plan, what is the renewal process for the license of the cannabis owner? Is it automatic, whether they have a social equity plan or not? They had an approved one, that's how they got their license. And so when they go to renew with you, with DCP, is that automatic, or are there steps that they have to take with your office to renew their license?
They have to go back into the system and take their steps, go through the process, go through this, whatever the system is requiring. It doesn't automatically say, okay, you've had you're up for renewal, you're automatically renewed. It doesn't do that. You have to affirmatively take some steps.
So there's affirmation. Okay, so maybe there's an inspection, or there's some certification of information that they have to fill into your form. Okay, so I think that's the thing. And so none of that includes a implemented social equity or workforce development plan.
Nothing for SEC is contemplated in the renewal at all. So yeah. And I feel it's so circular the way I'm explaining, so please forgive me, but you require affirmative steps. You have to take affirmative steps, go into the system, do your thing, but nothing with SEC later right now. So, and if we're to deny a renewal, they have the right to go through a process. They have the right to an administrative hearing, or I think that's what it's called for us, but they have the right to be heard.
Yeah.
Right. Let me ask then Councilwoman Skyes Thomas. So at this point, what would be things that would prevent a renewal from taking place? For example, is there anything that other than clerical? Because
I know they have to pay a certain amount of money. If they don't pay, they don't get renewed. I don't know of any other aspects that hold up the renewal.
Okay, so is that?
Oh, changes in ownership. I was just share some changes in ownership. If their company ownership changed, then it would be preventative for them to move forward. Apart from that, I don't know additional criteria, Councilman Shirley.
Okay, thank you. Then one other quick suggestion before, and then Councilman Jefferson. I guess the next question I would have then is, how can we add to the list of things that would deny a renewal, lack of implementation of the social equity plan originally agreed upon. That's, and then Councilman Jefferson, you have your hand up.
Well, you're stealing my thunder, Councilman Shirley, because those are the questions that I have, and I don't want to put Councilwoman Skies Thomas on the spot here, but that's where I was going, because it's starting to appear as if we have no choice but to have an amended piece of legislation, and because folks would have to argue against a social equity criteria upon renewal. And I just don't see folks arguing about it when the intent of the whole social equity mission is just that. You see what I mean? So I think it's a glitch that has to be corrected. In the interim, I would ask Councilwoman Skies Thomas to explore just what Councilman Shirley raised. Is there some place where we could simply say, if they don't have that implementation or criteria or meet the workforce development criteria, that the process is held in abeyance until they do so? I mean, their renewal is held in abeyance until they do so. I mean, because we're just clicking buttons here, right? I mean, that's all we're doing. So I'm wondering if that's something that we can do. Like, I'm sorry, you can't have that. We haven't seen implementation, and because I really don't think someone is going to succeed on a lawsuit if in fact the criteria of the social equity plan and workforce development plan are not implemented. I just can't see it. I mean, why even go through that when you know what you signed up for, right? You signed up, right? The criteria was there from the beginning. What are you suing us for that you don't have it and you don't have to have it?
Right. And mindful of Councilman Gaddis's sort of reluctance to go back to the legislators, I'm thinking that maybe we do what Councilwoman Skies Thomas had suggested as a first step. Take a look, have the Attorney General or having an attorney from that office take a look to see if there is already an implied notion within the social equity plan that if they don't implement it, the license is not renewed. And then if in fact it's not in there, if it's a no, it's not implied, then I guess the next step would be we have to request that we follow up and that we button that piece up, because clearly it was the intent. I mean, why else have it in there?
Right. As a criteria, as an initial criteria.
Right, to get a license. I mean, but you don't have to implement it. You just have to write it up. So, that makes no sense.
Right.
So my interest, if I may, Councilman Shirley,
Sure.
my interest is, I think we need a little bit more information, and I can take that responsibility to check in with my team and see where we could potentially add this in. I believe that if we're adding a denial element to it, that we have to be really clear in our communications and how this is even contemplated, because as I'm just thinking through it, if we add a denial aspect to this, that means that if the plan is not approved by the Social Equity Council, that we're removing their license, so they're no longer able to operate. I don't know that that's what to do. So is there anything in the interim or any steps prior to that? Can we say that it's contingent on approval from SEC? So it doesn't come to the point to us where they're saying they don't have it and it's just a check the box. Can we build in a process that has a connection from SEC prior to, and when it comes to us now, we're just checking the box and saying it has been properly reviewed, or whatever the process is with SEC. So at this point, it's not we are not the ones who are really removing licenses, because that's really very significant and um, impeding people.
Good. Yeah, I mean, the other, and I saw your hand, Director Clay, but the other step might be to say until you're unable to apply for a renewal until you have implemented the social equity plan that you agreed to when you got the license. I mean, you know, as opposed to a denial, you can't even come to a renewal unless you, you know, you can't apply for a renewal unless this way we don't have to deny it. It's just that they're unable to apply.
Councilman Shirley, could I, through you, I
Yeah.
see the director's hand up. I'm gonna let the
Yes.
director ask her question, but defer. But I just don't want to lose my train of thought, so I'll just raise
Go
my
ahead.
hand. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I know what
I mean, I think Councilman Shirley is raising a very good point. Prior to renewal, here's the question. Prior to renewal, does something go out that reminds folks that renewal is coming up? Is there some notice that they receive that renewal is coming up for their license? Is that a normal part of the process? Does anyone know?
On the DCP side, yes, they would get an email or a blaster saying, you know, time's winding.
Right. So can part of that notice be a reminder to make sure that they have a social equity plan that has been implemented and proof of that, and a workforce development plan that has been implemented and proof of that?
And proof of that.
Right. Just as part of notice, your thing is coming up. Please be mindful that you know what I mean? And I think that alone, in lieu of legislation, might give the folks who are serious about it, who understand what we're about, you know, time to get their ship in order.
Yeah.
So I would
You know,
suggest
so that you don't have to read. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to respond. Finish talking, please.
No, that's what I'm saying. Just in case, as a fallback, if we have the pushback from the legislature, I really do think we should you know, pursue an amended piece of legislation to add to it the intent, if in fact the Attorney General's office advises us to do so. If not, we go with what we have and see what happens. And then if we need legislation, then we have to obviously pursue that course. But I think the more prudent way to do it is to see if we can add something on that the front end and remind people during the renewal process that that's an expectation, and that's been mandated from the very beginning.
Right.
For you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I love the idea. I believe to be able to execute that, we really need to have statutory authority. So I don't know what it stands as right now. So to be able to put that piece to say, yes, this is contingent on, let's just make sure. Let's make sure that we have.
I didn't say it was contingent on.
Okay.
I said it's a reminder that you have that. It's a reminder. We're not saying what will happen if you don't have it. It's just reminding them that they should have implemented a workforce development plan and a social equity plan. So I don't think that a reminder requires legislative changes or approval. It's just, I just want to remind you, this is a criteria from the beginning that you're supposed to have this, and this. Just make sure you do upon renewal. Now, that's basically just letting them know, reminding them of their obligation. That's all. I'm not saying, and we're not saying you're going to be denied if for renewal. If you don't, we don't know, you know, what's going to happen. We'll see what happens down the road, you know, because even if they get the plan, if someone was to be renewed and did not implement a workforce development plan or a social equity plan, then we have that problem, and then it's going to require legislative changes. We're not going to have a choice.
Executive Director Clay, I'm sorry, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Yeah, so a couple of things though. The question we have is the DCP license renewal for cannabis, is the renewal process a regulation or a policy or legislation? So when the process for renewal, does DCP create that process as a policy? Or is it in legislation what the requirements are to renew your license? The other thing is each company is required to provide a 60-day, a 6-month update of their plan's progress. And then they are required to provide the full report on the implementation of their plan. If the folks were to come to DCP for the renewal and we had the piece in there that, your renewal is contingent upon your workforce plan, the implementation of your workforce plan being approved by the Social Equity Council, we don't necessarily have to shut their license down. But if we were to, and right now we upload the approvals for the social equity plans in the e-license portal so that DCP knows that the plans have been approved. We could upload an approval letter on the companies into that portal as well that says that their plans have been sufficiently implemented. If their plans are not implemented, we could give them a 30-day notice to cure and implement those sections or tell us why they didn't implement them. And then maybe there's another recourse they could take. So let's say they were gonna do a program. Let's say they were gonna do an expungement program, and that didn't happen. And so right now we say, okay, you can tell us, we'll give you 30 days to tell us how you're going to implement that program, and then let them implement it. Or you can make a contribution to a nonprofit organization and pay a fee to a local nonprofit. And then that would allow them to still have the impact in the community. Doesn't give us, make us fine them, but then they can still continue with their license.
I also believe that we should keep in mind that the license is an extremely valuable asset. And, in addition to allowing them to continue their business, it also gives them something to borrow against. And it also gives them something to sell if and when they want to. And so I think there are some levers that we have in terms of making sure that social equity plans are implemented once they're agreed upon. We can hold up transfers. There are any number of things. But I think I like the idea, though, that there should be some teeth. I agree that reminders are important, and we should make the reminders, but also the idea that lack of implementation would make them subject to a delay in the renewal of the license. I think that would be something that we should seriously consider. Councilman Jefferson, you have your hand up. Is anyone else? I think
you articulated that very well, Councilman Shirley. I agree with you wholeheartedly, because at the end of the day, and let's be clear, I think this discussion is for that 2, 3, 4% of folks who are just not going to do it for whatever reason. And because right now it's based on an honor system. No matter what you say, it's based on an honor system that they will, just, follow the rules basically. And if you don't have that, if they don't, what then? And so we can't, I don't think, afford to take that chance. And so I guess what I'm saying is we're left with no other recourse other than to seek an adoption of in a change in the legislation, some sort of amended legislation that at least say, listen, we're going to delay until you have the social equity plan implementation. A social equity plan implemented or a workforce development plan implemented and proof of it. That's basically what we're looking for. Now, in the interim, sure, I really do think you have to go back and ask someone has to, seek some legal advice on what we can do in the interim. That's important. How, in fact, if that 4% or whatever number that is decide to ignore the criteria, what are our options?
Right, and how do we make a delay in the renewal an option in the event that those plans are not implemented? You know, just indefinite delay. Until it's implemented, your license is delayed. You won't get it.
So, Mr. Chair, in hearing the desire of the committee, I believe that there is some more information that needs to be kind of put forward. That's
Okay.
most appropriately in the space of council that's outside of DCP. DCP shouldn't be advising on this aspect. However, I think going back to point, sounds like it's consensus that this needs to be a change in legislature. And I know Councilman Gaddis is not really in favor of going in front of the legislature. We've lost him already, but I believe
He's
that
on by phone. I think he's on by
okay.
phone.
I believe that is an aspect that is best served to make sure that this is clear and that we are protecting ourselves in the process. And if this is to be a built-in aspect that allows for that particular recourse and kind of gives that teeth like we were talking about, that should be a provision. So I can go back and clarify our aspects in terms of what we can do on the renewal side and make sure that, be really clear on what DCP is able to do for the renewals. But I do recommend that council has that, the committee has a legal look that's outside of the DCP.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And I think then that's a general consensus that we, at least at first step, is to take a legal look to see what we know we want to be able to affect the renewal process. If in fact those the agreed upon social equity plan and work development plans have not been implemented, then it should affect renewal. And we need to figure out, I guess, what's the best way to do that. And I think that what Councilwoman Skies Thomas has suggested is to take a legal look, Director Clay. So we should follow that as a first course. And then to answer the question, if the authority is not implied, it doesn't sound like it is, but if the authority is not implied, then how do we get that? How do we get that authority?
Okay.
Councilman Jefferson, any other thoughts?
Well, it's thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I'm thinking, if all else fails, I mean, the only weapon we have really is, to put put those companies on notice on our website. I mean, these are the companies that have implemented a workforce development plan. These are the companies that have implemented a social equity plan, and put them out there for folks to see. I mean, and if they don't have a social equity plan, why should the larger community support their business? I mean, the whole idea, we exist for that purpose. You understand? And I think we, we have to guard that and pursue that mission very zealously in terms of making sure that folks adhere to social equity. That's what our council's about. We can't undermine our own mission and not fight for this. This is crucial. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councilman Jefferson. Any other comments from members of the committee? From you, Director Clay?
Yes. So one of the other recommendations, the final recommendation that I mentioned, is that the council could issue a social impact report for all cannabis companies, and we can list out the top companies, so kind of give them a grade for social impact in the communities as a result of their social equity plans. If all else fails and we only had that as a recourse, and that would go on our website and would go to the public, that these companies did not do well by reinvesting in communities or having social impact in communities that they're located in. And these companies did fantastic and highlight, programs that are being effective and the impacts in the community. And I think we could do that either way, as a good measure, to highlight those companies. But if we don't have any other choice, then that could be what we could
Thank you
do.
for that. I think it would be a good idea, at least to highlight the ones that are behaving well. And to let the public know that they are behaving well and that they deserve the public support.
Mhm.
So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Before we move forward on that, I just feel like I continue to caution us to tread light. So let's
Yes.
consider and consider what we'd be putting out about companies and what this would mean, and if this would be slanderous in nature, or if there's something that could be coming back to us. But let's just tread lightly on that. And I know
Right.
that's our last alternative, but maybe we're not there yet. So perhaps we can explore some of the other avenues.
Understood. And my last comment though was basically to congratulate those that have behaved well, but and to be silent on those who have not. So I'm not, I don't know if that's falls into the area of slander, but your point is well taken. We will tread lightly as we go forward. Any other comments before we move to the next issue? If not, then I think, are you satisfied, Director Clay, that we've given you the direction you need to move forward?
Yes, and we'll have some other recommendations at the next meeting of the committee.
All right, great, thank you. For the good of the order.
Happy holidays. Be well, be
Happy
safe.
holidays.
Happy holidays to everyone. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for their input, and definitely appreciate it. And let's move forward. Have a great holiday, everyone. Blessed and healthy.
Thank you.